Hey guys, welcome to Art and Soul with Heather. Please excuse the raspy voice. If you heard my last tutorial, if you saw it, you know I didn't really sound so hot then either. And I'm not exactly 100% yet, but I am definitely feeling better, which is good. And you know what also makes me feel really good? Painting. And I hope it does for you too. But anyway, so for today's painting, it's just a little basket of orchard apples, just kind of fun and cute, something to kind of think about gardening or spring or even fall, because there's a lot of apple picking in fall. So it really depends on what kind of mood you're in or thinking about rather. So I will be providing the step-by-step instructions for you to make your process go easier. But bottom line is, like you'll hear me say all the time, just don't paint with a clock nearby. Don't rush your work. Just enjoy the process and just have a good time with it. Whatever time you put into it is going to be the outcome that you have. You can spend days, you can spend minutes. It really just depends on all the details that you want, to work on or shine. All right, so let's get started. I'm starting my project drawing in soft lines as I sketch out my basket in sort of a rectangular shape with semi-rounded edges and a rounded rim edge. I make the base of the handle wide but make it thin at the top to suggest that the basket is sitting at its side. Next, I draw on the weaved portion of the basket, and you'll see me divide it into thirds. This means I'm only going to have 3 layers of a woven pattern that I'll work with. I make the pattern look similar to how bricks are laid and then draw in the apples. When that's completed, I sketch in a partial tree trunk to represent the apple tree in which the apples were picked from, and then finish it off where the ground level will be. When I'm satisfied with my sketch, I make my lines concrete so they'll stand out more when I'm painting. Notice I make the woven pattern have rounded edges. It's to give the basket more detail. I start by painting in the background using my 3/4 inch tip flat brush with the color Blissful Blue. The paint doesn't fill out quite evenly, so I quickly use the blow dryer to dry it up a bit so I can add another layer of paint and then fill in the portion inside the basket. For the basket, I'm using an assortment of colors, beginning with the color light brown as I fill in the rim using my number 8 flat shader brush. Next, I add in a tidbit of flesh tan to give it more of a wood-type look. Using the same brush, I fill in the handle. For the back side of the handle, that would also be the inside of it, I use the color brown for shadowing so it looks more 3D. Now I'm using the color Flesh Tan to individually fill in each block or section of the basket. I go back and add a little bit of light brown to help give it that wood grain type look, as you'll see me do multiple layers. Each layer I concentrate either on the edges for shadowing or in the center for highlights, all which also make the basket look rounded. For the threading, I switch to my number 5 round tip fine detail brush and fill it in with the color Caramel. I need a second coat, so you'll see me using the blow dryer to dry it out. Using the same brush, I'm now using the color Burnt Umber and making shadowing within the basket as well as around each block or section of the basket. I quickly go back to Flush Tan and just clean up my lines a little bit. So for the apples, I'm also using an assortment of colors. Using my number 8 flat shader brush, I begin with the base color Mendocino Red. I run the blow dryer real quick so I can add a second coat and then add a layer of fire red on top of the Mendocino Red. Next, I add a touch of Sunshine Yellow, creating a semicircle, giving the apples an embedded look where the base of the stem will be. For this portion, you'll notice that I use several layers of colors as I'm blending, which also includes watermelon and burnt umber for the stems and shadowing. I'm trying to achieve apples that look like the Gala variety because they're my favorite, but you can make yours more simplistic or just an entirely different variety altogether. Because the apples are rather small, it makes it difficult to get the blending down to how I want it. Usually larger areas are easier to work with, but that's just my opinion. To make the stems, I'm using the edge of my brush with the color Burnt Umber and then quickly switch my brush to my number 5 round tip fine detail brush to make the knot at the end of the stems. I fill in the apple outside of the basket using the same colors and blending techniques. Now onto the tree, and it's going to be about as simple as filling in the background. I switched to my 3/4 inch tip flat brush again using the color brown. Notice I'm just doing up and down brush strokes to give the tree more detail in the trunk or bark, and I also make the base of the trunk have a jagged edge so it gives a more realistic look. I use a little bit of burnt umber to add some more shadowing and detail in the trunk. For the grass and leaves, I switch my brush again to my wisp brush. A wisp brush looks similar to a comb, which is especially useful when trying to achieve details like grass, hair or fur, things like that. Here I'm using the color grass green and just making upwards brush strokes. I go back to add another layer of grass using the color forest moss that helps add more dimension and natural colors of grass. Next, I'm using the back of my number 5 round tip fine detail brush and stamping in little dots with the color Sunshine Yellow that would serve as the center of little flowers I'm going to paint into the grass, just to add some finishing touches. I turn the brush around and paint in the flower petals using the color white. For more finishing touches, I switched to my number 18 detail brush using the color burnt umber and painting a tree carving. Here I'm just putting mine and my husband's initials, but you can put a Bible verse instead if you want to keep it more faith-based relative to apples, like Proverbs 7:2, keep my commandments and live, keep my teachings as the apple of your eye. Here I go back to my number 5 round tip fine detail brush, just cleaning up my lines, as well as my number 8 flat shader brush for bigger areas using Blissful Blue. Now I go back to my number 5 round tip fine detail brush to paint a couple of apple leaves using the colors grass green as the base coat, followed by a little bit of forest moss for contrast and added details. Lastly, I switch brushes again to my number 8 flat shader brush to clean up my lines and add a few more wood grain details on the basket. Here's the finished product. I was going to add more details in the background, but my phone storage hit its maximum, so I had to leave it here, which is probably better because it will leave it open for ideas for you. You may want to paint a white picket fence behind the apples, or a sign on a stake that says fresh picked orchard apples, or just get some stencils and paint welcome at the top. It really depends on what you like, or if you think less is more in this case and like it how it is. If you liked the tutorial, please be sure to not only share it, but to hit like and subscribe for more videos. But more importantly, remember to thank God for this opportunity and always paint from the soul.